Hello, Saints. I've been looking back over the six bowl plagues of Revelation 16, those seven last plagues, and taking a look at what they're about. They're not just punishments on the enemy of God, but they are more about God showing the world, much like he did Pharaoh, who he was. He showed Pharaoh who he was when he turned the Nile River to blood. That he wasn't just God up in Canaan land, but he was God there in Egypt as well. And same thing at the end time. Revelation 13 verse 3 tells us about the one of the heads being wounded as unto death and then being healed, and the whole world was amazed and followed after the beast system. You have the world following a system they believe to be true. They believe this is true God. And so what we have here at the end in the seven last plagues is this world of deceived people who receive the plagues, but it's not just punishment because they didn't believe true God, but rather it's God revealing to them that they've been deceived. And what we find very interesting there is that they refuse to repent once they begin to recognize that they had been deceived. He begins with the first plague, and we're just going to talk about the first plague here, with spots. It says, so the first angel went and poured out his bowl, verse 2 of chapter 16, on the earth, and it became a loathsome and malignant sore on the people who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped his image. And it's not just that God was wanting people to have sores, but think of this as from the Old Testament. As I said last week, remember John is using the language of the past to write about the present and the future. And in the Old Testament, when we read about anybody with any kind of a skin malady, leprosy was usually the cause, they were assumed to have the curse of God upon them. They were set outside the camp. And in this case, God comes into the world, and for those who weren't following him, he marks those who are outside the camp, who are outside the covenant. And that's most of the world. And that's what the sores represent. It sets them apart from God's people. So it's not like God was protecting his saints by putting his hand over them. He only gave them malignant sores to the wicked. And on through that, the plagues as they're laid out, several places, they begin to realize that they have been deceived, that the systems they're following are not correct. And so they had said, so in two places at least, that they had refused to repent. And so God exposes them for who they really are. They're without excuse. And this is what we see in the picture at the end. Have we been sealed with the seal of God, not to be marked outside the camp? Have we received God's love in our hearts to share a message of restoration? Or are we receiving this mark of the system that's at the end time, thinking that that's the way to go? It's not about getting the mark. We see that in the evangelical world. You get the mark. The mark can't be given to you. It's something you have to choose to take. It can't be forced upon you. It's not some chip in your hand. It's not some barcode across your forehead. It is the attitude that you have towards God. It would be true worship of true God or worship of the false god, the Baal system. Very similar to what we see in 1 Kings 18, Elijah there on Mount Carmel. Has the final showdown there about who is God, Baal or Jehovah, Yahweh. And so they have the showdown, and the fire falls upon Elijah's altar. And so they see who real God is. And this is kind of what's going on at the end. There's a battle over who is God. Satan does not want to give up. And the people are marked, who have been set outside the camp. And so that there's no question now about who is God's people. And they refuse to repent. So now is our opportunity. Choose God as we prepare for the kingdom. Share that message abroad to your friends, to your family, so that if that time comes in our lifetime, you want them to be ready to receive Jesus. Blessings.